oftentimes as they were before, your physical energy, sometimes your mental capacity is not as great, and you can't take as much trouble as you can in your days of your youth. And you haven't got so many years left to correct the mistakes that you make. So, to have the tranquility, the peace of mind that I have today in the afternoon of life is one of the great joys that has come out of this philosophy. And if you ask me what has been my greatest compensation, I would say that's it. Because there's so many people at my age, and even much younger than I, who haven't found peace of mind and never will. They never will. Because they're looking for it in the wrong place. They're not doing anything about it. They're expecting somebody else to do something about it for them. And that peace of mind is something that you've got to get for yourself. You've got to earn it, first of all. That's how anybody can get peace of mind. And you'd be surprised where you have to really start looking for it. Not where the average person is looking for it, out there in the joys of what money will buy, out there in the joys of recognition and fame and fortune and what have you, not there. But in the humility of the one individual's own heart. I get peace of mind mostly in that third inner wall that I described to you, where the wall is as high as eternity, where I go in for meditation many times each day. There's where I get my real peace of mind. And I can always withdraw into that inner wall, cut out every earthly influence, and commune with the higher forces of the universe. What a grand thing that is. And anybody can do that. You can do that. When you get through this philosophy, you'll be able to do anything you want to do, just as well or better than anything that I can do. And I'm hoping, incidentally, that every student that I turn out will eventually excel me in every way that I know possible. Maybe in writing books. Maybe you'll take up where I left off and write better books than I wrote. Why not? I haven't said the last word in my books, nor in my lectures, or in anything else. Matter of fact, I'm just a student. Just a student. I think I'm a fairly intelligent student, but just a student on the path. And the only state of perfection that I have is that I have actually found peace of mind and how to get it. Engage in at least one act of going the extra mile every day. Now, you can choose your own circumstance. If it is nothing more than telephoning an acquaintance and wishing him good fortune. You'll be surprised what will happen to you when you begin to call up your friends that you have been neglecting for some time and just say, well, hello, you were on my mind. I was thinking about you. I just wanted to call up and say, how do you do? And I hope you are feeling as good as I am. You'd be surprised what that'll do to you and what it'll do to the friend, too. And it doesn't have to be a close personal friend. It just has to be somebody you know. Or you may relieve some friend from duty for half an hour or so, or have some neighbor send over his children while he attends the movies, or you might do a little babysitting for one of your neighbors. You're going to be at home anyway. Maybe you've got some children of your own. Maybe you know some neighbor that would like to get off and go down to the movies, but she can't get away from her children. Oh, I know, the children are noisy, and they probably fight with your children. But if you're a real diplomat, you'll keep them apart. She'll be under obligations to you, and you'll feel that you've really been kind by helping out somebody who otherwise wouldn't have had a little freedom. So it'd be a nice thing for some of you people who don't have any children to say, well, could I come over and babysit for you while you go out? Why don't you and your husband go on a little courtship, go out to the movie, go to a show, and let me come over and babysit for you? Well, of course, you have to know your neighbors pretty well in order to do that. Certainly, most of you would have some neighbor that you could approach on some such basis as that, and they wouldn't think you were crazy. It's not so much what you do to the other fellow, it's what you do to yourself by finding ways and means of going the extra mile. In little ways. Did you know that both the successes in life and the failures are made up of little things? Very little things. So little, in fact, that oftentimes they're overlooked. The real reasons for success is overlooked because the things that make success are such small, seemingly insignificant things. I know some people so popular, they couldn't have an enemy. They just couldn't have an enemy. And one of them is my distinguished business associate, Mr. Stone. Always going the extra mile. And look how prosperous he is. Look how many people are going the extra mile from him. There are a lot of people who, if they didn't make good money working for Mr. Stone, if they had to do it, they'd pay him a salary even to work for him. And I know, I heard one say just that. And he's become immensely wealthy himself, working for Mr. Stone. He said, if I didn't make money out of working for him, I'd pay him if I had to, just for association with him. Now, Mr. Stone's not different from you or me or anybody else except in his mental attitude toward people, toward himself. He makes it his business to go the extra mile. Sometimes people take advantage of that. Don't act fairly with him. I've seen that happen too. He doesn't worry about that too much. In fact, he doesn't worry about anything at all, period. Because he's learned to adjust himself to life in such a way that he gets great joy out of living, gets great joy out of people. Or you may write a letter to some acquaintance offering him encouragement. In your job, you may do a little more than you're paid to do. Stay a little longer on the job, make some other person a little more happy. Thank you very much. I want to introduce you to the most wonderful person in the world. That's the person sitting in your seat right now. And when you commence to break down that person point by point, well, in accordance with these 25 factors that go to make a pleasing personality, you'll find out just exactly where you're wonderful and why. And I'm going to ask you as I go along, grade yourself. The rating that you think you're entitled to, and it can be anything from 0 to 100%. Then when you get through, add up the total and divide it by the 25 traits, and that'll give you your average rating on the pleasing personality. And if you rate all the way through a general rating of 50%, you're doing very fine. Some of you rate much higher than that, I hope. Now, the first trait of a pleasing personality always is a positive mental attitude, because nobody wants to be around a person who's negative, and no matter what other traits you may have, if you don't have a positive mental attitude, at least when you're in the presence of people, you're not going to be considered to have a pleasing personality. Now, rate yourself on that anywhere from 0 to 100. If you can rate 100 on that, you'll be up in the class with Franklin D. Roosevelt. That's pretty high. And the next one is on flexibility. Now, what do I mean by flexibility? I mean the ability to unbend, to adjust yourself to the varying circumstances of life without going down under them. You know, there are a lot of people in this world who are so stayed in their habits and in their mental attitude that they cannot adjust to anything that's unpleasant or anything that they don't agree with. Do you know why Franklin D. Roosevelt was one of the most, if not the most popular president we've had in our generation? Because he could be all things to all people. I've been in his office when senators and congressmen would come in there ready to cut his throat, and they'd go out singing his praises. Just because of the mental attitude in which he received. In other words, he adjusted himself to their mental attitude, and he didn't get mad at the same time the other fellow did. That's a mighty good way of adjusting, too, incidentally, is to learn to be flexible enough not to get mad when the other fellow's mad. If you want to get mad, do it on your own account when the other fellow's in a good humor, and you'll have a much better chance of not getting hurt. Flexibility. I've seen presidents of the United States come and go. I've been associated with several of them. And I know what this factor of flexibility can mean in the highest office in the world. Herbert Hoover probably was one of the best business executives, best all-around executives we've ever had in the White House. And yet he couldn't possibly sell himself to the people a second time because he was inflexible. He could not bend. He was too static, too fixed. Calvin Coolidge was the same way. And Woodrow Wilson, to some extent, was the same way.